Hi, I'm David Camper Vanman. Welcome to my channel. In this video I'm going to replacing the front brake discs and pads on a Volkswagen Transporter T6, and the job is pretty much the same for T5, T5.1 and T6.1. I think T6.1s have got slightly different calipers on them, but everything else pretty much the same. And I'm going to do the passenger side front because this one's got a sensor. I'll only show one side because it's the same job on both sides, just it doesn't have a sensor on the UK driver's side. So let's get going. First job I do is to loosen off the bolt that holds the brake disc on, and that's an M10 spline bit. Easier to do it when there's a bit of tension on the pads. See, it's not very keen to go. There he is. So you've got to take the calipers off and the carriers, and that lets you get the carriers are blocking you taking the disc off. That's why you have to take the carrier off. Next job, take this little spring clip out. Just a little wedge screwdriver. And then there's two Allen key bolts, Allen head bolts, two little caps on the rubber slide, and that is a 7mm hex head. Okay, it shouldn't be too tight as long as you've got the right hex size. You don't want it rounding. Just spinning it out with the gun for speed. Okay, before you take the caliper away, better take this sensor off. There's a little clip at the back. Just push it down and it releases the clip. I've actually made a little tool from a tuna can pool, and sometimes you can slip it in there. Sometimes they get a bit tight and it releases it, and it stops you breaking the little plastic clip. So that works quite well. There we go. I'm going to be bleeding the brakes on this as well, so I may as well check the bleed nipples are free. Yeah, nice and free. Good, so that caliper will come away, but you'll find it gives a little bit of resistance because you might need to push the piston back a bit. So all I'm doing off camera there is just removing the cap from the brake fluid reservoir and then putting some paper around about just to stop any overspill. You can syringe it out too if you want, because you're going to be putting some brake fluid back through the system. So all I'll do here is just lever the piston back enough to get the caliper off those clips. Yeah, I've seen it being more difficult than that. The brake pads come out nice and easy. I've seen worse, but this is a higher van, so I don't want to have to replace them halfway through the season and the discs getting quite worn. I think they're the original discs. They've done about 70,000 miles. Okay, now you've got to get the caliper carrier off, and it's a 21mm headed bolt on the inside. It's very tight. And there we go. That's off. That was nice and uneventful. That's the way I like it. And so next one I will be showing you to put that back on. Okay, let's tackle the driver's side. He wasn't keen. he wasn't keen either. I don't know if you'll notice, but there's not as much life left on the pads on this side as they are on the others. That's because usually there's a driver to stop as well, which makes the pads wear down a bit quicker. Okay, so next stage is to push the piston back. For this, I have, well, you can pop the brake pad back in. Doesn't have to be the right one. And I've also got a G-clamp. And remember, I've already taken the cap off the brake fluid reservoir. And it would be wise to remove some if there's too much, otherwise it'll spill everywhere. So I'm just going to check that. It doesn't harm to put some new fluid in it anyway. The more new fluid you've got, the best. Good. Okay, now all you've got to do is push that piston back. Okay, that's it fully back. I'm going to be cleaning up the caliper carriers before I put the new discs and pads back on. Okay, I've got my parts now, so time for the refit. First job I'm going to do is spray anti-seize on this face, and I'm going to clean up the new disc just in case there's any like oily stuff on it, like brake cleaner. And we'll put a little bit of copper grease on the inside there too. Stops things rusting. And I like to put a little bit of wax on the brake back plate because there's little bolts there, see? And you'll thank yourself if you ever have to take that brake back plate off. Okay, first thing on is the brake disc. Tend to find if you hold it at the bottom, it likes to stay on at the top a bit easier. Caliper carrier next, and I have put some thread lock on the bolts, very important. And I'll just paint some copper grease. I've cleaned up the caliper carrier critical parts with a wire brush on a grinder. It's these bits in here, because the rust makes it swell out, and that's where you got the opportunity to seize brakes up. Everything swells up and pushes things closer to the disc, and it's more of a risk. Make sure you put the threads in by finger to start with, and then you can gun it in. Okay, and right at this stage you tighten this up. Tighten the caliper carrier up. Okay, it's nice and tight. Now we can put the pads on. And these come with anti-squeak pads, this one's. But I'm putting some copper grease on as well. Oh, and that just goes round where the piston goes. Feed the sensor wire through there. Now I'm just going to gun them in on a slow setting. They don't need to be all that tight, just offer some resistance. I should check the right torque. Clean that wire so that it's not all gritty putting it back together. And hear the connector click. Put the caps back on. And then there's a spring. Pretty much get it in by hand, but just give it a little tap. There we are, that's them fitted. Let's do the other side. Okay, I've prepped up this side. Okay, good, they're nice and tight. Let's get pads. Just when you're putting the caliper back on, make sure the brake hose is not twisted. Good, job done. Now I will press the brakes to push the pistons back out, but I'm going to be doing the rear brakes as well, so I won't do that until it's all job done, and then I'll be bleeding it as part of this job. But there you go, you can see that's it done. Thanks for watching.